Hey folks, this is Matt once again, basically making a video as a response to CK, the Creepy Kentuckian from Dead Pit. Great guy in here. Him and I had a chance to talk with him, well, kinda, a little bit when he was doing a Saturday Nightmare sort of chat thing, and I was there. Uh, Unfortunately, Uncle Bill wasn't there. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but that guy, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have this great thing and that great thing. So, hopefully one time, sometime. But those guys have always been nice to me, and they've always been kind to me, and they've always been helpful to me. So, you know, I owe them a lot, both of them a lot. So, as to the video, he did a video talking about, it was like a question, is horror dead? And then talking about how there's not a lot of mainstream horror films coming out. How, mostly it's, if you don't find it's direct to DVD or video on demand, stuff like that. And how, is there going to be a film in the future that's going to kickstart it? Like Saw did, Scream did, Blair Witch Project did, and so on. Um, as for what will do it, if I knew that, I'd be rich. Because I'd be like, okay, I know what's it. I don't want to make it. I don't want to be rich. I don't want to say fuck y'all tonight. I don't live with my bitches and hoes. If I knew, but I don't know, which sucks. Damn it. I'm rich, bitches. I can't do that. But as for horror films, I mean, I've actually gotten this question a few times. Why do I review mostly? Why do I review mostly older films, whether it be horror films or not? Because since this is about horror, I'll stick to horror. I review mostly older horror films because not be, only because I'm more a fan of those kind of movies. Even 90s. I mean, a lot of people, will sort of make fun of the 90s, but I like the 90s. There's a lot of horror films in the 90s that I truly enjoy. In 1990, you had Jacob's Ladder, which I love. In 1999, you had Blair Witch Project, which I love. And even like, say, Deep Blue Sea, I have fun with. Stuff like Deep Rising and The Relic, I have fun with. Even End of Days, you can. That's horror. I really enjoy that film. Candyman, I like. I think Wishmaster was in the 90s. I like that. In the Mouth of Madness, People Under the Stairs, uh, Tremors, which really would be 89, but I think it was actually January of 1990, I believe. So I think that could still count. Um, if not, then okay, whatever. But I still think of Tremors as the 90s film, so fuck it. But there's a lot. I know there's like even stuff I'm missing. Like I could make it easily a top 10, top 20, even top 30 horror films of the 90s that I enjoy. But going away from that, recently, like even direct to DVD stuff, if I think about like the past 3 years, I could think of horror films like Tucker and Dale vs. Evil I really enjoy. Frozen I personally enjoyed. I liked even stuff that not a lot of people did, but I like Rubber. I like that movie. I know it's weird, but it's offbeat, and even I know a lot of people even say, "Would you really consider that horror?" Well, maybe not, but I think a little bit of it. But I liked Rubber because it was so different and offbeat. Uh, Lost Boys 3, The Thirst, direct to DVD sequel, but I actually thought it was a fun one. Uh, but none of those, I mean, some of them went to theaters, but like little, like not much. And if you're lucky, you got to see them in the theater, but most of us were from direct to video, direct to DVD stuff. You saw them on your Netflix or something like that. They didn't really get in the mainstream theaters. And even way back when, I could say, Behind the Remastered, Rise of Lazy Vernon, Jack Brooks' Monster Slayer. Uh, but, unfortunately, they didn't really kickstart the horror genre. Although I will say, what I wish would have kickstarted the horror genre, um, either A, like, either I would love to see horror films again that are blue collar, like star like you, me, like normal looking folks who seem normal, or okay, maybe they're better looking, but their characters are kind of like seem like blue collar characters, or they have like more personality. Now, whether it be like say Alien or Tremors or even stuff like the 1988 The Blob, I thought they were kind of blue collar folks a little bit. Um, but I like those kind of characters. I like those kind of, not seeing people. I'm uh, I'm wearing these $10,000 fucking dresses and suits, and I look like someone who should be on the cover of Teen Beat or Beat Your Meat or whatever the fuck magazines they'd have. Cosmopolitan and Teen Bitch and whatever fucking magazines they have. It's like it seems like it almost people get hired because of their looks, not if they have talent. I know I'm being harsh, but like think about it: Brad Dourif, Lance Henriksen, you know, a lot of people, actors that you grew up with who you think are really good horror actors. Rutger Hauer. They're not models, but they're really talented actors. Now think about in this generation, what do we see? We don't really see a lot of horror film actors of this generation. You know, Brad Dourif is a great actor. He's a great horror film actor. Rutger Hauer, same thing. Lance Henriksen, same thing. Even those guys, though, aren't really getting great parts anymore. Really. And I'm sure there's tons more you guys could think of. Jeffrey Combs, among many others. And it's a shame. I know that's not what the question was in the video, but I think that's part of the problem with horror films. I mean, at least for me. I mean, there are others who are like, you know what, I can find a lot of horror, and that's fine. But like, if I think about mainstream, like some of the stuff I mentioned, but mainstream, like stuff that was in theaters worldwide. Honestly, I probably have to go back to 2009, maybe, with Friday the 13th, the remake, reboot, whatever. You know, and it's not like I would put that in my top 50 horror films of all time. Because I wouldn't. But I mean, I like the film. Hills of Eyes remake in 2006. Honestly, mainstream wise, that might have been the last great horror film I've seen. I don't know, that's a remake, and that's some people would disagree with that, but after that, I mean, not really like mainstream wise. The thing about mainstream, you have films that's some people would classify as horror, some people would not. Like Drive Angry with Nicolas Cage, Underworld films, Resident Evil film, like Silent Hill. I know they're doing a Silent Hill 2 in 3D. They're doing Resident Evil Retribution. You had Underworld Awakening. Some would call them horror, some would call them not. What's your guys' take on that? Would you call them horror or not? But like, what's coming out in mainstream like this year? The Devil Inside My Asshole. What was it? The Woman in Black. The Cabin in the Woods. Some would say Prometheus. I've heard people refer Prometheus as horror. I think even I did. So I know some people disagree, some people not. Whatever. Uh, Paranormal Activity 4. I know there's one called Sinister with Ethan Hawke, which really I saw the trailer. It didn't really interest me. The trailer is Sinister with Ethan Hawke. It just seemed like I was going to say something I've seen before, but really that could be any movie. But it just seems like it really is like a sense of deja vu. Like, haven't I seen this film already? Like, I know you can say that for a lot of films, but Sinister really made me think they're that. Uh, that found footage VHS that It's an anthology film, found footage. I don't know if that's going to be in theaters or not. Um, well, yeah, that World War Z, for what I've heard, is a PG-13 zombie film. It's PG-13 because of the big budget. I don't know how the hell that's going to work. Maybe they'll change it. I don't know. It's been going to have a lot of problems. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D, which is like a sequel to the 1974 film, which I'm like, why? I like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, but whatever. I don't know how the hell that's gonna work. You have Carrie remake, Evil Dead remake, Suspiria remake. I know you got like some of these other films like The Possession. I'm like, really? Another. What is it? Gonna be like The Devil Inside and Exorcism of Emily Rose? And it's not found footage, but I'm like, really? Another one of these kind of films? I guess some people would say like Insidious. Some people would say Insidious and Cabin in the Woods, but uh, does anybody about Insidious made a shitload of money? But it didn't. Even that film, which made a shitload of money, I don't know if that film really kickstarted anything. If you think about it, I mean, that was a film idea, and that made a shitload of money. A lot of people liked that film. It didn't kickstart anything, which is why I'm doing this. Like, it's weird that it didn't kickstart anything. But yeah, I don't think any of these films are going to kickstart the horror genre. I really don't. As to what film will, it's honestly, yeah, it's going to be a film that's going to come out of left field. That's going to be surprised. Oh, wow, I didn't see that coming. And then whether you like or hate it, it did kickstart something. I mean, that's how it is. It could be some guy or girl making a film secretly away from all these websites. Which, by the way, I think is funny that some of these there's some horror film websites they're having trouble finding stories because they're a horror film website and they're talking about Looper and RoboCop remakes and Godzilla, and I'm like, I didn't know these were horror films. You know, I didn't know they were horror films. But maybe it's just me. And I think mostly they're talking about the Walking Dead TV show, which I know some people say it's horror, some people say it's just drama. I haven't seen the show, but because I just haven't thought of it really. Uh, so again, what I would like to see in the horror genre, I love to see blue collar folks, real actors, not just okay. Let's get these people to their pretty boys and pretty girls. Think about it. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but like horror films, I really enjoy, like Jacob's Ladder, like uh, I like Leviathan, like Tremors, like uh, stuff. They were just actual adults, people, actors, Alien and Aliens and all this stuff, Predator. Like you saw like adults acting in horror films. A lot of times it's like teenagers, or it seemed like teenagers acting in horror films. You don't see a lot of adults acting in horror films. And what's sad is that when you do, is stuff like maybe Sinister, which doesn't really interest me, or but like blue collar folks or real actors, like where are the Brad Dourifs, Lance Henriksen's, Jeffrey Combs, uh, even like Jamie Lee Curtis? Like I like her. I don't know if I call her like a model. I think she's good looking, but I wouldn't really call like a model type of person. Or Heather Langenkamp. I really like her. Amy Steele. Really liked her, really good looking, but I don't know if you think of them as models. But it seems like we're getting a lot of people who are like models, who straight out of, a Cosmopolitan or fucking Teen Beat or Beat Your Meat or Teen Bitch or, Teen Wankers or whatever the hell magazines are called now. But maybe that's just a generation thing. But again, I mean, again, do I think horror film is dead? No, it's in hibernation. I think the horror films you don't find that you like are going to be the gems, the hidden gems that come out direct to DVD or video on demand, but not stuff like Piranha 3 Double D or fucking. I'm not looking forward to Hatchet 3 or stuff like this. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not looking forward to any horror films coming out nowadays. I mean, that's just my honesty. That's why I don't talk about newer horror films unless once in a while it's a rant. Like, usually the rants, oh, why do you rant? Because I don't like it. Piranha 3 Double D, Double Dicks, I'm not going to like. I'm not going to like Devil Inside My Asshole. No one does. I'm not going to like, I'm sure I'm not going to like fucking Paranormal Activity 4 since I didn't like the other three. Found Destination, I'm sure they'll make another one. I didn't like I stopped liking it after part 2 or maybe even 3. Maybe just a grumpy Gus, but I'm sorry. The thing pre-cum didn't make me cum with joy. It made me rant for fucking like 40 minutes. Because I think they're shitty. I think they're not. I don't know how else to describe it because it's all personal opinion and personal taste. But so this doesn't go on for 30 minutes. What film's gonna kickstart it? Honestly, all the films that I see coming out, I don't see it. The Carrie remake, Evil Dead remake, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D, fucking Paranormal Activity 4, Hatchet 3, Silent Hill 2, Resident Evil Retribution. Um, really, none of that makes me. First off, I don't care about any of those movies. Second off, none of them makes me think, oh, it's going to kickstart or anything. Pacific Rim, I don't really call it a horror film. Um, some of these other films, like Elysium with Matt Damon, which some of these horror film websites are reporting, I don't really think that's a horror film. Elysium. Uh, but yeah. So I don't know what's going to kickstart it. Otherwise, I'd be rich. I don't think any of these films are going to kickstart it. What I would like to see, either blue collar folks or get some actors, get some people who are going to be the Brad Dourif, Jeffrey Combs stuff in the future. Because I don't see it. I don't see any new horror film actors of this generation. I don't see it. I'm sorry. I don't think it's Rooney Mara or Scott Taylor straight out of Compton or fucking Daniel Radcliffe or fucking I don't know what the hell else there are, but I don't think it's them. But I would like, or maybe I like to see a return of like the horror action film. It sounds weird, but okay, horror and action. Let's put these guys together again because I really enjoy them. Or whether would you like to see practical? Okay, you want to use CGI? Then give me an adrenaline pumping ride. I guess is what I'm getting at more. Adrenaline pumping. I like Deep Blue Sea. I like The Relic. I like Deep Rising. CGI usage, but you give me an adrenaline pumping ride with adults as characters, and I had a fun time. I would love to see those again. Like you know, monster movies, like an old school monster movie with real actors or adult actors on the big screen would be great. You know, that's not just a Resident Evil film or something or Underworld film. Either I didn't mind Underworld Awakening. I will be honest, I didn't mind it. But adult actors like you see Deep Rising, you see Deep Blue Sea, you see The Relic, you see like Leviathan and Tremors. Tremors is a big one. I would like to see that in a film. I like to see fun horror films that doesn't have the same downbeat, depressing ending. I understand horror film is a horror film. Some of them do. But think about it. A lot of them don't. Friday the 13th films don't really call any of those endings downbeat. Same with Nightmare on Elm Street films. Same with even that film. I wouldn't. Well, that film isn't really a downbeat ending. I mean, I'm not talking about sequel bait endings. I'm talking about everybody's dead or everybody's fucked or we're all fucked. But that's just my own personal opinion. But yeah, I think horror films are in the hibernation right now. But hopefully we'll see some hidden gems in the direct-to-DVD market. I think, who knows? For all I know, that's where horror films are going. The horror films, they're not going to make it mainstream, but you're going to have to. Maybe that could be where we're going right now. That the horror films that you're going to see that really open your mind will go direct to DVD. That's not going to be mainstream. It's not going to be in the theaters. Just if you ask me from 2010 to this year, which is all of 2010, all of 2011, all of 2012, to name 5 horror films, actual horror films that I really liked, I don't know if I could do it. Like Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I think Rubber, but some wouldn't even call that horror. Was Frozen? I would think Frozen would be part of it. Maybe Lost Boys: The Thirst. And I'm sure there's one more. It's just not coming to me. But that's what I mean. Like 3 years, and I'm like, I'm hard to come up with 5. I'm sure there are people who will come up with 5 very easily, but that I'll disagree with. But that's how it goes. But I'm gonna cut off here, so because it is going to get to 30 minutes if I don't stop talking. The thing is, I made a video like this before, but I kept wandering because it's a topic that you could talk about for an hour on the horror genre. And I will say, I think it is in hibernation. I don't see anything mainstream that's worth a shit that, I'm at least interested. That I don't know if even my friends would be actual interested in. I mean, there's always the film that will surprise you, but I mean, really, even direct-to-DVD wise, there's nothing coming out that I've heard that I'm at least been interested in the horror genre, and that's why I go back to the older films. That's why I'll talk about, The Ambulance with Eric Roberts from 1990, which some would that's not even a horror film; it's a thriller. But that to me is even more of a horror film than some of the films come out today. I'll go back and talk about fucking uh, the Blob remake from 1988 and do an hour-long review of that, which I'm sure will happen one day. I'd rather do that than some of the films come out today, but I guess the reason I'm wandering around, it's a tough question to answer because when CK asked it, it's like, do I think the horror film is dead? No. It's never dead. It's just going to be in hibernation. But you don't have different people have different tastes. Like I'm sure there are people who say, someone will go say, "Well, what are you talking about?" There's The Gray and Cabin in the Woods, and there's they can blah 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 real off the bat. Um, or they'll say, "Well, Martyrs and the Serbian film and the Human Centipede." Like you have those films coming out. For me, the horror film genre, I'm not really. It's in hibernation, and I'm waiting for it to wake up. And once in a while, I gotta hunt down that elusive gem. But usually, when I find those gems now, it's like from way back when, in the '90s, or like hell, I did a review on the Aberration. This is a film from 1996 or so that I didn't even know about. I didn't even heard about. That I'm like, wow, I actually like this. This is a horror film about killing mutant like gecko lizard things. And I really liked it. I had a ball with it. Not even out on DVD, but it's on YouTube. But I mean, again, this is going to be a half hour anyway. Fuck. Is horror film dead? No, it's always in hibernation. I'm waiting for it to wake up. I hope it does. I would love to see like blue collar folks or actual actors like a new Brad Dourif and fucking that kind of thing, or adrenaline pumping fun horror films like the Blob remake is a fun horror film, or with actual actors like The Fly, you know, Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis, or uh, whatever we talk about. It's hard to explain, but yeah, the horror genre doesn't really appeal to me right now in today's age. Because when I first started this video, I was going to say that yes, the horror film is dead, but in seriously thinking, the horror film is never really dead. It's just in hibernation. And you'll find a lot of direct-to-DVD stuff, but to be honest, most of them I don't really care about. Like most of horror films that come direct to DVD, like I'm sure every week you can find a horror film that came out, but I'm like, I don't really give a shit about this movie. And I'll see them like, I didn't give a shit about that movie. But who knows? Maybe I'm just being negative Nelly. But maybe you guys have better answers. Is there any horror film coming out mainstream that you actually think is worth a shit? That you think will kickstart the genre? I don't think there are any. Do you think there's any horror films, even direct to DVD, that you're looking forward to? Um, because to be honest, if I'm thinking from 2010 to 12, like I can barely come up with 5 horror films I liked. Films that are kind of horror-ish, I mean, that'd be pushing it, then maybe I could, but it's not like it used to be, but maybe that's where it comes from getting older. I mean, hell, I never would guess The fucking Devil Inside made money, but it did. It made a shitload somehow. So who knows? So at least for me, there's nothing out there. But maybe for folks out there, there is. I mean, that's why it's so hard to answer this question, because you don't have the other people say no, horror's not dead. You just gotta find, just you know. For some people, no, horror's not dead for me. I got Paranormal Activity 4, and I got the new Final Destination, and I got, you know, stuff that are kind of horror that I'm looking forward to, and who knows with this and that. But yeah, all I know is even though horror film is in hibernation, I'd rather just go back and revisit and maybe find some gems from whether it be direct to DVD or mainly in come out in the 80s and 90s and stuff. But either way, it's a hard question to answer. I know. I'm just blabbing on and on about because the horror genre, as in today's age, I don't really. Usually, if I watch one, I rant on it, and not because I just feel like, oh, I got to rant on it. It's just new. It just doesn't appeal. Like Shark Night 3D and Apollo 18 and Piranha 3 Double D and Prometheus, and this stuff doesn't appeal to me. And if this is how horror films are going to be in the mainstream, then a Nightmare on Elm Street remake and the Thing prequel. I'm like, if this is what horror films are in mainstream, then fuck it. Fuck mainstream horror. Fuck it in the ass. And even direct-to-DVD stuff, nowadays, I'm not seeing a lot. Like, once in a while I can find a gem, but that's sad. That once in a while maybe I can find a gem. Like a Frozen, Tucker and Dale versus Evil, and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess that's really what you're going to have to do, because let me tell you something, Hollywood doesn't learn lessons. They still keep making the fucking same mistakes. Look at The Lone Ranger. Yeah, we had John Carter and Battleship being these big massive flops, But we're going to do a 250 some $1 million production on Lone Ranger. You know, a Western, even though Westerns have flops like Jonah Hex and Cowboys and Aliens, which I even liked, but it flopped. But even Dark Shadows didn't do that well. Johnny Depp, but whatever. That's a different thing. But either way, I don't know when now because I'll keep going forever, but you guys can feel free to make responses or, you know, leave your own comments on the horror genre today. You know, what your thoughts on what horror films are you looking forward to? What horror films? Are there any horror films coming out that you think are on Kickstarted? Or just your thoughts on the whole matter? Because it is an interesting topic. That's why I could blabber on and on about it. For me, it's kind of a depressing topic because I think of myself as a big horror film fan, but as of lately, it's not really something I talk about new horror films a lot because there's really not a lot that I give a shit about. And if I see it, then I'm like, well, fuck this. It sucked. Maybe I'm just being negative Nelly. But either way, you know, feel free and take care. And I'll see you with a new video later.